Have you ever felt like you're caught in a spiritual and financial tug of war? Like you're doing all the right things, tithing faithfully, giving generously, working diligently, praying for provision, and yet your financial journey feels like an endless uphill climb? You're planting seeds, you're watering them, but the harvest seems distant, and the numbers in your account barely seem to budge. It can be disheartening, even testing our faith, leading us to wonder if true financial flourishing is only for a select few. But what if I told you there's a divine principle at play, a spiritual and financial threshold where the rules of the game completely transform? A moment where God's favor and the laws of compounding converge, turning your uphill struggle into a downhill momentum. It's not just about luck. It's not just about magic. It's about a biblical truth, a principle of sowing and reaping, amplified by diligent stewardship and the power of multiplication. For unto whomsoever much is given, of him shall be much required, and to whom men have committed much, of him they will ask the more. Luke 12:48. But it also implies that with a foundation, more can be multiplied. This is the story of why building wealth gets easier after $100,000, not just financially, but spiritually, as your resources begin to multiply for His glory. So let's talk about the wilderness season, that initial stretch that tests our patience and often our faith. Before you reach that pivotal $100,000 mark, building wealth feels like an exercise in pure trust and perseverance. It's akin to the Israelites wandering in the desert. Every step is dependent on daily manna. Every provision feels like a direct act of grace, and the promised land seems impossibly far. Think about it. You're faithfully making choices, often denying immediate gratification, not just because it's financially wise, but because you believe in a greater purpose for your resources. You work diligently, remembering Colossians 3:23, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for human masters. You might skip certain luxuries, not out of deprivation, but out of a commitment to stewardship, knowing that the borrower is slave to the lender, Proverbs 22:7, and you desire freedom, not bondage. You say no to immediate wants to build for a future of abundance, reflecting the wisdom of Proverbs 21:20. In the house of the wise are stores of choice food and oil, but a foolish person devours all he gets. And yet, when you look at that modest increase in your bank account, it can feel like your financial journey is stuck in neutral. You're planting seeds, you're tithing, you're giving, you're working, but the growth feels agonizingly slow. This is because, in these early stages, your financial seeds haven't yet truly begun to multiply in a noticeable way. You are the primary harvester, relying on your direct labor and God-given income. Every dollar saved, every dollar invested, is a direct result of your disciplined obedience and personal sacrifice. Let's return to that snowball analogy, but through a spiritual lens. Imagine you're at the very bottom of a massive snow-covered mountain, perhaps representing a daunting financial calling. You pick up a handful of snow, form it into your first small snowball. Maybe that's your first faithful $5,000 saved, or your commitment to consistent tithing. Now you have to push that little ball up the steepest part of the hill. It's small, it's heavy, and every single movement depends entirely on you and the strength God provides. Your muscles ache, your breath hitches. You might even pray for strength with each push. That's your first $10,000, then $20,000. Even at $50,000, you're still grinding, pushing that snowball with all your might. The burden is undeniably on your back. Even if you experience a truly blessed year in the market, say a strong 10% return, on a $50,000 portfolio, that's only $5,000. While $5,000 is a significant blessing, it often doesn't fundamentally change your daily financial reality or alleviate that feeling of needing to constantly strive. It feels like a small grace, but not yet the overflowing abundance you desire for kingdom impact. So what's the core challenge here? It's crucial to understand it's not your discipline that's lacking, nor is it necessarily a lack of God's favor. It's the simple natural law of financial multiplication. In this early stage, the engine of wealth isn't yet visibly accelerated by compound interest. The primary engine is still you, your God-given abilities, your diligent income generation, your stewardship of time, and your faithful sacrifices. You are the one carrying the snowball up the hill, step by faithful step. And that's precisely why many people, even those of great faith, quit. They look at the immense effort they're pouring in, the constant saying no, the feeling of deprivation, and they compare it to the slow, tiny, almost invisible results. They think, if this is what building wealth looks like, I'll never get there. Maybe God wants me to be poor for His glory. But this isn't the complete picture. The Bible teaches multiplication, abundance for good works, and wise stewardship. What they don't realize, what you might not realize, is that you are closer to the tipping point than you think. You're often just a few more faithful pushes away. Because once that financial snowball hits $100,000, the entire game, it doesn't just change, it flips. The momentum, fueled by God's blessings on your consistent stewardship, starts to carry you forward. At some point, often when you least expect it, somewhere around that $100,000 mark, something truly divine clicks into place. There isn't a loud ding from heaven or a dramatic fanfare, but you absolutely feel it. It's a subtle yet profound shift, almost like stepping into a new season of favor. Suddenly, your net worth doesn't just grow, it begins to accelerate, reflecting the principle found in Deuteronomy 28:12. The Lord will open the heavens, the storehouse of His bounty, to send rain on your land in season and to bless all the work of your hands. Why this acceleration? Because for the very first time, your financial resources start working for you, mirroring God's design for multiplication. Instead of you carrying that snowball uphill by sheer grit and daily obedience, now the hill itself starts sloping downward. The burden shifts. Instead of you pulling every dollar forward, your diligent dollars begin to pull you. This isn't just financial theory. It's the moment when compound interest, a powerful law of the universe set in motion by our Creator, stops being an abstract concept and starts becoming a tangible, undeniable force in your financial life, a visible sign of seeds sown now bearing fruit. Let's ground this with the numbers. Imagine that same strong 10% return we discussed earlier, a blessed year in the market. On a $10,000 portfolio, 10% yields just $1,000. That's a good return, a blessing, perhaps enough to cover an unexpected expense or sow a special offering. But apply that same 10% return to $100,000. That's $10,000. $10,000. Think about the impact of that. For many, that's equivalent to a full extra month's salary or even more for faithful work. But it came from doing absolutely nothing new. You didn't pick up a second job. You didn't hustle harder. You simply let your diligently managed assets do their work, a testament to the power of wise stewardship and the principle of multiplication. Your money, like a diligent servant, worked while you slept, while you served, while you spent time in prayer. And here's the most powerful part. That $10,000 return gets reinvested. Now, your new total of $110,000 compounds next year. So the following year, that same 10% return isn't on $100,000 anymore, it's on $110,000, yielding $11,000. The snowball grows faster, the momentum builds deeper, and suddenly you're no longer primarily pushing, you're steering. You're guiding a self-propelling force, much like a good shepherd guides their flock rather than carrying every single sheep. But it's not just the external math that shifts. When you reach six figures, something profound changes inside you too. Your spiritual and financial perception of money transforms. No longer do you see it merely as a means of survival, a dwindling resource to be hoarded in fear, but as a powerful tool, a machine blessed by God. One that, if managed with wisdom and purpose, has the inherent capability to produce more resources automatically and consistently for both your provision and for kingdom impact. Your mindset begins to subtly shift from, how do I make ends meet, to a more strategic, kingdom-minded question. How do I make what God has already entrusted to me work more effectively for His purposes and my provision? You stop seeing money as just a personal finish line. Instead, you start seeing it as a force multiplier, a tangible expression of God's blessing on your stewardship. Every dollar becomes a tiny, diligent worker you've hired, reflecting the faithful servant who multiplied his talents in the parable of the talents. From this point forward, the process of building wealth becomes less about raw struggle and more about intelligent systems, divine strategy, and leveraging the momentum of consistent stewardship. Now let's be clear. Just hitting $100,000 won't magically solve all your problems or mean you're exempt from life's challenges. It's not a golden ticket to early retirement or a life of pure ease, but it is the first time the mathematical and spiritual dynamics start truly working for you, not against you. And once you're there, once you've felt that momentum, that distinct shift in the burden, there's often no going back. That feeling of multiplication, of God's hand on your increase, becomes addictive. So the obvious next question is, how do we as faithful stewards reach this critical point faster? How do we accelerate that initial grueling climb with divine wisdom? That's where the real strategy begins. Reaching $100,000 in God-honoring wealth takes more than just discipline. It takes divine strategy and leverage. Just as a wise builder uses the right tools to construct a strong house, we too must employ the right levers to build our financial foundation for His kingdom. As Proverbs 24:3-4 tells us, by wisdom a house is built, and through understanding it is established. Through knowledge its rooms are filled with rare and beautiful treasures. There are three main levers that, when pulled correctly and in concert with God's guidance, can move you forward faster than pure effort alone ever could. These are your strategic advantage, the forces that will propel you from a slow crawl to a spirit-led sprint. They are offense, defense, and efficiency. Let's break each of them down. Lever 1, offense. Increase the flow, honor God with your labor. This is often the most obvious lever, and ironically, also the one many Christians feel hesitant about. Earn more money. It sounds simple, but for some it feels at odds with humility or contentment. Yet the Bible praises diligence and rewards those who are faithful in their work. Proverbs 10:4 reminds us, lazy hands make for poverty, but diligent hands bring wealth. Offense doesn't mean sacrificing your integrity or time with family for endless pursuits. It means looking at your income not as a fixed number, but as a faucet God can bless and expand. The wider that faucet opens, through honest and ethical means, the faster your wealth reservoir fills up, allowing you to be a greater blessing. So, how do you open that faucet wider in a way that honors God? Excel in your calling, seek excellence in your current role. Ask for a raise, negotiate better terms, not just for personal gain, but because you are providing high value. Remember, Proverbs 22:29. Do you see someone skilled in their work? They will serve before kings, they will not serve before obscure people. Develop God-given talents. What unique skills or gifts has God given you? Can you use them to serve others and generate additional income? Whether it's writing, design, teaching, or a specialized craft, these can be powerful streams. Many biblical figures, like Lydia in Acts 16, were successful business people who used their wealth to support ministry. Seek wisdom and knowledge. Investing in your skills is investing in your human capital, a resource given by God. Learning a high-value skill like coding, digital marketing, or project management can permanently upgrade your earning power. This isn't just about secular advancement, it's about becoming more capable of stewarding larger resources. As Hosea 4:6 says, "My people are destroyed from lack of knowledge." Apply that principle to your career and earning potential. Every extra dollar you earn through diligent and righteous means is more fuel for your financial snowball, and the earlier you earn it, the more time it has to compound and multiply for God's purposes. But here's the critical point. Offense alone won't get you there, because even the strongest faucet gushing with water is ineffective if the bucket below has leaks. Lever 2, defense. Keep the flow in your pocket by practicing wise stewardship. This is where many of us falter, not because we don't earn enough, but because we fail to keep what we earn. Defense is about protecting your God-given income from unnecessary losses. It's about plugging the leaks in your financial bucket, the subscriptions you forgot about, the impulsive purchases, the lifestyle creep that silently drains your momentum and robs you of resources meant for greater impact. Think of your money like water flowing through a well-maintained pipe. Every unnecessary expense, every thoughtless purchase is a crack. And every crack, no matter how small, slows the filling of your wealth reservoir and diminishes your capacity for generosity. This doesn't mean living a life of scarcity or denying simple joys. Far from it. Defense, in a faith context, is about wise stewardship, spending intentionally and aligning your outflow with your deepest values and God's principles for your life. It's about being faithful with a few things so you can be put in charge of many things. Matthew 25:21. Align your spending with God's principles for your life. Here are some defensive tactics rooted in wisdom. Mindful spending and contentment. This isn't about legalism, but about conscious choices. Do you truly need that daily luxury, or would a more modest choice free up resources for giving or investing? Can you find contentment in what you have rather than chasing every new trend? Hebrews 13 verse 5 advises, "Keep your lives free from the love of money and be content with what you have, because God has said, 'Never will I leave you, never will I forsake you.'" Track your spending. You can't plug leaks you don't see. Just as a shepherd knows his flock, a good steward knows his resources. Use an app, a spreadsheet, or even a notebook to track where every dollar goes. This isn't to judge yourself, but to gain awareness and identify areas for improvement. Eliminate financial waste. Review all your recurring subscriptions and commitments. Cancel anything that doesn't add true value or align with your priorities. Negotiate bills. Every dollar saved here is a dollar that can be redirected towards your savings, investments, or faithful giving. Defense is about intentionally creating a substantial gap between what you earn and what you keep. That gap is the actual engine of wealth building for kingdom purposes, and the bigger that gap, the faster your engine accelerates. But there's still one more crucial lever, and this one truly allows your resources to multiply. Lever 3, efficiency. Make your money work smarter, embrace multiplication. This is where true momentum and the visible manifestation of God's blessing on your resources lives. Efficiency isn't just about saving money, it's about where your money goes once you've saved it and how it grows. Because a dollar saved is good, yes. But a dollar invested efficiently in alignment with biblical principles is a powerful worker you've hired to build your future and expand your capacity for generosity, much like the faithful servant who took his master's talents and invested them wisely. Many people hoard cash out of fear, thinking they're being responsible. But keeping your emergency fund in a standard savings account earning almost nothing is like having fertile ground but never planting a seed. Your money is safe, but it's doing nothing productive. We are called to be productive with our talents and resources. Here's how to maximize efficiency with a faith-based perspective. Utilize tax-advantaged accounts, wise investment vehicles. These aren't just confusing financial terms, they are growth accelerators. Max out your 401k, Roth IRA, and health savings account, HSA if available. The tax benefits allow your money to compound more rapidly, reflecting God's desire for multiplication and good stewardship over the long term. These structures allow more of your seed to grow without being diminished by unnecessary taxes. High-yield savings accounts, productive reserves. For your emergency fund and short-term savings, move that money from a traditional bank to a high-yield savings account. Even a few percentage points of interest mean your idle cash is now working for you instead of sitting stagnant. This is about making all your resources productive, even those held in reserve. Beware of excessive fees. Good stewardship of resources. This is a silent drain on wealth. A seemingly harmless 1% annual fee on a mutual fund may sound negligible, but over decades it can cost you hundreds of thousands in lost compounded returns. This is poor stewardship. Prioritize low-cost, diversified index funds. Be diligent in vetting your financial vehicles. As Proverbs 27:23 says, be sure you know the condition of your flocks. Give careful attention to your herds. Apply this to your investments. Automate everything. This is arguably the most powerful efficiency hack for the modern steward. Automate your giving, your savings, your investments, your transfers, your debt payments. Set it up once and let it run on autopilot. Why? Because we are human, prone to forgetfulness, temptation, and procrastination. Systems don't get tired, they don't get emotional, and they don't succumb to impulse. They just work, silently, consistently, reliably, freeing up your mental energy for prayer, purpose, and impact. This builds consistent discipline, which Proverbs 13, verse 4 touches on. A sluggard's appetite is never filled, but the desires of the diligent are fully satisfied. Put these three levers together. Sharpen your offense with diligent labor, tighten your defense with wise stewardship, and optimize your efficiency through smart, automated systems, and your journey to that first $100,000 shifts dramatically. It transforms from a desperate, slow crawl into a strategic, spirit-led sprint. But now comes the even more exciting question. What truly changes once you cross that significant financial milestone, seeing God's hand in the increase? So, what exactly changes once you cross the $100,000 mark in your financial journey? A journey marked by diligent stewardship. The answer lies in something profound, often overlooked in the pursuit of wealth, and that's the wealth curve as it intersects with God's principle of multiplication. Before $100,000, your wealth curve, for most people, feels remarkably flat. Every $100 saved feels like a personal victory, and it is a victory, a testament to your faithfulness in the small things. You're climbing with your hands, pushing the weight yourself, entirely reliant on your own effort and God's daily provision, much like Jacob serving Laban. But once you hit 6 figures, the curve bends. Not sharply at first, not instantly like a sudden blessing from above, but steadily. And then slowly at first, it begins to rise, gathering momentum, becoming steeper and steeper with each passing year. This isn't just financial theory, it's the undeniable power of mathematical compounding reaching critical mass, mirroring the biblical truth that a little leaven leavens the whole lump, Galatians 5 verse 9, or that a small seed can produce a mighty harvest. Let's put that into perspective with some stark numbers. We mentioned earlier, at $10,000, a 10% return earns you $1,000. That's a blessing, perhaps enough to cover an offering or a small need. But at $100,000, that same 10% annual gain gives you a clean $10,000, and you didn't lift a single finger for it. That's a profound difference in impact. It's the harvest from the diligent seeds you've been planting. Now imagine you press on, guided by wisdom. What happens at $250,000? A 10% gain there yields $25,000. $25,000. For many, that's more than the average American's yearly take-home pay, generated passively without exchanging a single hour of your time for it. You are no longer primarily trading your precious time for money. You are effectively trading your wisely stewarded money for more money, allowing you greater capacity to bless, give, and serve. The paradigm has fundamentally shifted, and here's where compounding becomes truly exponential, demonstrating God's principle of abundance for those who manage well. Every single return fuels the next. Every gain gets automatically reinvested, especially if you've set up your systems efficiently, as we discussed. Every new dollar that enters your financial machine doesn't just sit there. It immediately gets to work, building on top of the last dollar, attracting more dollars, like the fruitful vine in John 15. Your invested dollars become tiny, tireless employees. They show up for work every single day, 24/7. They don't sleep. They don't ask for vacation time, raises, or sick days. They just work. They compound. They grow. And once you have enough of them, enough capital at work for you, blessed by God, they genuinely begin to outperform your active income. That $10,000 or $25,000 annual return on your investments can start to rival or even surpass what you earn from your job. This is not just wealth building, it's wealth multiplication, a visible sign of God's favor on diligent stewardship, reminding us of the parable where the diligent servants gained more talents. Now the math gets emotional, because for the first time in your wealth building journey, you feel something profound and deeply satisfying: relief and greater capacity. The immense pressure that weighed you down during the uphill battle starts to lift. You realize, I'm not the only one carrying this burden anymore. My money is now working alongside me, pulling its own weight and then some, freeing me to focus more on my purpose and calling. That feeling, that moment when your net worth begins to grow faster than you can contribute to it manually through your savings and salary alone, that is precisely when wealth building gets significantly easier. It's the point where you transition from a feeling of scarcity and struggle to a feeling of abundance and acceleration, not for selfish gain, but for greater kingdom impact. But here's the crucial twist. Reaching $100,000 is undoubtedly a monumental milestone. It's a moment to celebrate God's faithfulness, but it's also, more importantly, a launch pad, because what happens next depends entirely on how you recognize and manage that newfound momentum, stewarding it for His glory. It's not the end goal, it's the beginning of a truly dynamic phase of financial and spiritual growth. After $100,000, the game truly changes, but not just in your financial accounts. The most profound transformation often happens right here, in your mind and spirit. You stop thinking in terms of relentless struggle and start thinking in terms of elegant, God-ordained systems and faithful stewardship. Before, every step forward felt like a grueling trade-off, a test of pure willpower. Work longer hours, spend less, delay gratification, constant vigilance over every dollar. But now, your primary calling isn't to work harder, it's to design smarter, leveraging the principles of order and multiplication God has established. Instead of constantly asking, "What do I need to give up now?" you begin to ask a far more empowering, kingdom-minded question. What system can I build that runs according to God's wisdom, that consistently propels me forward and allows me to be a greater blessing? This is where automation becomes your most powerful ally, a practical expression of trusting in God's provision while being a diligent steward. You start automating virtually everything financial. Transfers right after payday directly into your savings. Auto investments into your chosen, ethically sound funds. Preset savings goals for emergency reserves or future kingdom projects. Recurring debt payments that quietly chip away at interest in the background. Each of these automated actions isn't just a convenient shortcut. It becomes a vital, interconnected gear in your wealth-building engine, a machine you've built through wisdom, much like the diligent ants in Proverbs 6:6-8 who prepare their food in summer. Because the undeniable truth is this: systems don't get tired, they don't get emotional, They don't succumb to impulsive desires. They just work, silently, consistently, reliably, whether you're actively paying attention or not. This frees your mind for higher calling, for prayer, for ministry, for relationships. And that truly is a secret of those who manage God's resources well. They don't primarily rely on heroic willpower to manage their money. They rely on robust, intelligently designed architecture and faithful routines. The structure holds everything together. It protects momentum, it removes doubt and decision fatigue, and it keeps that powerful snowball rolling and growing for both your good and God's glory. But there's another equally significant transformation happening beneath the surface. A change not just in how your money works, but in how you think about money itself, through a biblical lens. Something profoundly powerful happens when you see six figures in your account, not just in your finances, but in your very identity as a steward. You no longer feel like someone perpetually chasing money or struggling to make ends meet. You start to feel like someone actively building something substantial, something bigger than just yourself, a tool for divine purpose. Your mindset subtly but profoundly shifts from worker to builder, from income chaser to kingdom asset manager. You stop seeing every dollar as merely something to spend, something to fulfill an immediate desire. You start seeing it as a potential employee, a tiny worker you can hire for God's purposes. A $100 bill isn't just a pair of shoes anymore. It's a seed. A seed that, given time and proper care within your systems, could grow into $200 or $500 or even $1,000 over the long term, echoing the parable of the mustard seed. A side gig isn't just extra income for a new gadget. It's a time machine, compressing years of financial progress into mere months, accelerating your capacity to give and serve. Impulse spending, which once might have felt harmless, starts to feel like an act of financial and spiritual self-sabotage, robbing from future potential. And strategic thinking, once perhaps intimidating, begins to feel like the truest form of freedom and empowerment for God's will. You begin to think twice about purchases, not because you're cheap or deprived, but because you now instinctively understand the concept of opportunity cost in light of eternity. That $50 dinner out, it's not just a nice night. It's the cost of potentially delaying your next major milestone or a significant offering. That $200 subscription you rarely use, it's not just wasted cash, it's dead weight, a drag coefficient holding back your momentum, perhaps even hindering a blessing meant for someone else. You begin asking yourself new, empowering questions. Is this purchase moving me forward in my financial stewardship, or is it slowing me down? Is this habit building wealth that can be used for good, or is it quietly burning resources? What's the long-term echo of today's seemingly small decision in light of God's purpose for my life? And those questions, those new internal dialogues begin to shape everything. Your time allocation, your financial goals, your risk tolerance, even your relationships with money, with other people, and critically, with your future self and your Creator. Because the kingdom builder doesn't just ask, how much can I make today? They ask, what am I building for tomorrow? How strong is its foundation, and how can it be used for His glory? This is why the path gets easier after $100,000. Not because life suddenly becomes simple or without challenges, but because you become more powerful, more intentional, more focused, and more strategically aligned with divine principles. And when that profound mindset shift takes root, something truly amazing happens. You stop fearing financial setbacks because you've built a system strong enough by God's grace to recover. You stop envying those overnight success stories because you know your path, rooted in diligent stewardship, is sustainable and blessed. You stop asking, can I become wealthy? And you start asking, how far can this snowball, empowered by God's multiplication, really go for His kingdom? That's the shift. And it's available to anyone who is willing to be a faithful steward and make it past the hardest part, the beginning. So why does building wealth get easier after $100,000, especially for the faithful steward? Because that's the pivotal point where diligent effort meets divine momentum. It's where your consistent hard work, rooted in biblical principles, becomes powerfully amplified by the forces of time, intelligent systems, and the relentless engine of compounding. It's the moment where the hours you used to trade directly for dollars begin to get replaced by assets, your financial employees, that never clock out, never take a break, and always work tirelessly on your behalf, allowing you greater freedom and capacity for kingdom impact. But here's the unvarnished truth, one we must face with humility. Most individuals never reach that $100,000 mark. Not because they're lazy, not because they're inherently bad with money, and certainly not because God has withheld his blessing. They fail because they give up in the quiet, often frustrating part of the journey, the slow, seemingly endless climb before the curve truly starts to bend. They quit before their money gets heavy enough to roll on its own, before their habits gain traction and become spirit-led systems. They lose hope before their mindset clicks into place, preventing them from seeing the multiplication God intends. But you don't have to quit. You have the knowledge now. You understand the levers illuminated by biblical wisdom. So here's my challenge to you from WealthOga. Don't wait. Start now. Not tomorrow. Not when things are perfect. Not when you finally feel ready, because true readiness comes from obedient action, not the other way around. Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might. Ecclesiastes 9:10. Start pulling those levers. Sharpen your offense. Find ways to earn more, honoring God with your labor. Tighten your defense. Plug those leaks and spend with intention, practicing wise stewardship. Maximize your efficiency. Put your money to work in tax-advantaged, low-cost accounts and automate absolutely everything you can, embracing the power of multiplication. Build your systems. Create the architecture that supports your goals, rooted in discipline and trust, rather than relying on inconsistent willpower. Push that snowball, consistently, intentionally, even when it feels heavy and slow. Pray for strength and keep moving forward in faith. Because one day, probably quite quietly, almost without you noticing, it will happen. You'll check your account or perhaps review your net worth statement and realize you've crossed the line. You've hit that $100,000 threshold. And from that point on, the most exciting question won't be, will I build wealth? It will be, how far can this snowball, empowered by God's blessings and your faithful stewardship, really go for his kingdom? If this video from WealthOga helped clarify the path for you, if it gave you that spark of hope and clarity, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel for more stories that reveal how money really works, through a lens of faith and divine wisdom. And I want to hear from you. Tell us in the comments below, what's the single biggest challenge holding you back from reaching your first $100,000, and how can we pray for you? Let's make this a space for real strategies, honest conversations, and actionable advice, rooted in biblical principles. And remember, every dollar you save, every dollar you invest, every system you build today is a silent worker you've hired, one that never clocks out and will tirelessly build your freedom and capacity for God's glory.